Would you call Chair, Madam Secretary?
Chairperson Keever.
Here.
Vice Chair Curtis.
Here.
Commissioner Bagwell.
Here.
Commissioner Cassiopo.
Here.
Commissioner Glenn.
Here.
Commissioner Long.
Here.
Commissioner Lehman.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to public comments. This is where members of the public who wish to address the Parks and Rec Commission may come forward and speak on matters related. It looks like CK is going to come before us. All right, come on down.
You want to take mine?
Oh.
Yep. Oh, you're good, man. You are good. Tell you, man. Okay, for the record, C.K. Bailey, really nice to see each and every one of you today, always. And I won't go on the record saying that Madam Chairman needs a pillow to kind of hoist her up a little bit so that she can see into my big brown eyes. And oh, I can see you. Okay, so my public comment is about Bailey Fishing Pond, which is has a great deal of water in it, which is an exciting thing, except that water is well over the temperature that is required to stock trout. So consequently, the trout that are in there are probably pretty low in the water, finding a nice spring that's percolating up. There are some bluegill that somehow found their way into the water. It is unknown, but they are out there, and frankly, the kids are having a ball with them. They're catching them and then flicking them back in. There's really not much bluegill to beer batter and do anything with. So the Nevada Department of Wildlife is still stocking, but not Bailey Pond. And there's very few waters that actually are being stocked. If they are being stocked, their chances are that they're in higher elevation where the temperature of the water is low. That's pretty much what's going on. Congratulations to younger Lehman. Personally, I think what he's done is just fantastic. I know that's part of probably an agendized item, so I'm sure the attorney will probably kick me for saying something like that. But he's wonderful. Good for you, and really good for him. There will be the Carson City Advisory Board for the Management of Wildlife coming up on, what's that? Monday. And we will have the Nevada Department of Wildlife in attendance. I'd love to have someone from the city there. That would be nice. Who is our wonderful person that took our outdoor, Ann Bollinger. If she somehow showed up, I certainly wouldn't turn her away, although I will have Dawn Baugh from the Nevada Department of Wildlife there to discuss what's on an agendized item for speaking on Hobart issue, the roads to Hobart, the state side, the city side would be nice to know, but and has already gone on the record about what's going on the city side with that. Not pretty, could be a long time, but there is a road that is from Lakeview, the Hobart Creek Road, and it is in operation. Of course, guys like me, it's horse, bike, or hike, and that's it. No motorized vehicles whatsoever. So that cuts out quite a few people that wish they could go to Hobart. And although I'm lanky, I'm not in the shape that our right fine supervisors are, our advisory board members are, and our supervisors. So If you have any questions, great, I'll take them at this time. Otherwise, I'm gone.
Anybody have any commissioners, questions for CK?
Seeing none, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, appreciate it. Is there any other public comments? Hearing none, let's move on to agenda item 1 for possible action on approval of minutes from our April 4th and our May 2nd meetings. Has everybody read them? Does anybody wish to make a motion? No. Commissioner Curtis?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something, and I think it was clarified later in reading some of the other staff reports, but on page, this is of the April 4th minutes, item number 4, the second paragraph, the second line, it says that Ms. Budge reported that we would not receive funds for the Ross Gold Park grant for disc golf. I think those were two separate items. I don't think we were playing disc golf at Ross Gold Park, but so it would be probably to say receive for Ross Gold or the grant for disc golf. Is that right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks Director. It would be, actually at the meeting, it would be and. So it would be Ross Gold Park and the disc golf course, although the status on that has changed, so I'll update you on that later.
Any other comments or? Michelle?
I'll just make a comment. I looked over the minutes and they look good, although I wasn't here for the April 4th, so I'm going to abstain for the vote.
So in that case, we probably should have 2 motions if Commissioner Long's going to abstain. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the minutes April 4th, 2017, with the exception as noted.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And the record will reflect that Commissioner Long is abstaining from the vote. All right, let's move on to the next set of minutes from May 2nd. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for May 2nd, 2017.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Thank you.
I have to abstain on that one.
Okay, the record will reflect that Commissioner Glenn is abstaining from the May meeting minutes. Okay, let's go on to agenda item number 2.
Excuse me, just really quickly, is that because you were gone in May? Okay, thank you.
Number 2, modifications to the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda by either the commissioners or staff? Then let's move on to agenda item number 3. A, Parks Program of the Month, presentation and discussion of the Bob Baldrick Theater by Erik. Erik, do you want to take the floor, please?
Good evening, Commissioners and Supervisor. Erik Klug, Recreation Program Manager. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about the Bob Baldrick Theater, and it's just the theater. We're not going to be talking about the rest of the community center. And I'm going to try to keep it short, but I do have a lot of details running around in my head, so I'm sorry if it gets a little long. Okay. So who are we? We're a proscenium theater, which when you're sitting in the audience, that's that frame that frames in the stage. So that's where we get the name proscenium theater from. We opened in October 23rd, 1974, and we were dedicated to Robert George Baldrick in September 4th, 1990. Bob Baldrick worked here at the community center for 10 years before he suddenly passed away, so that's why we're dedicated to him. We have 783 seats. We have a 38 line set counterweight fly system. This is a unique system for this area. To have this kind of system, you'd either have to go to Tahoe or Reno if you choose not to use us. We have 4 dressing rooms and 1 multi-purpose room that enter right onto the stage. This is a luxury item for our users. Most theaters, you're either several floors below the stage or you're down the hall. We have a removable orchestra pit, a full commercial grade lighting system, including follow spots, and a full commercial grade audio system. So for our staffing, we have one recreation program manager who also oversees the youth programs and adaptive recreation. We have one recreation program coordinator, one message center coordinator who oversees the sign out in front, and he's a part-time theater tech, so he helps relieve the program coordinator and take on ancillary events such as Ice Rink and Nevada Fair and Epic Rides. We have 7 on-call technicians and 5 part-time building maintenance workers. Now, these staff also take care of the community center as a whole, so they're not just dedicated to the theater. So what do? We support a variety of shows. This is just a partial list of the type of shows that we support, and each show has a different set of trainings and unique tricks that we have to know. For example, the rigging to do Cirque is completely different from the rigging to do musicals. So we have to know a broad variety of skills. We also provide off-site technical support for ice rinks, Nevada Fair, Epic Rides, other city events. We also take care of the audio racks that are located at Fuji Park, the pool, Marv Texera, and the MAC. We do equipment support to like the Brewery Arts Center and Wild Horse Children's Theater. And we do educational outreach at the various high schools and middle schools. We also are the school district and Western Nevada College theaters. So just some quick stats here. The different types of users that we have are school district and school district sponsored, city sponsored, private individual, nonprofit, which is broken into resident and non-resident, commercial, and contract classes. With our current fee structure, the non-resident, nonprofit, commercial, and contract classes pay the most, and the rest are either discounted or free use off of our direct cost. So just for usage, in 1990, and the reason for 1990 is I found those stats when I was moving offices, and 2012 is when we had an operational assessment done, and then the rest of it I pulled from ActiveNet and the various reports that we keep. But in 1990, we had 93 days of use. In 2012, we had 181 days of use, and then in 2014, we jumped to 261, then 284 and 15. So we've been climbing up. We did drop a little bit in 2016 as we lost a couple dance competitions and a major production. Industry standard for theaters is to have 250 days of usage a year. So we are exceeding the industry standard for that. And then for 2017, we currently have 250 days reserved, and we are working with a few other groups that will bring us into the 260, 270 range by the end of the year. For revenue in 14-15, and this revenue is just the theater only. This does not include ancillary rooms like dance competitions, reserve, the gym, and the Bonanza and the Sierra Room. And it doesn't include any ancillary equipment, wireless mics, projectors, and whatnot. This is just the auditorium. We brought in a little over $46,000. In 15-16, we brought in just under $56,000, and 16-17, we brought in just over $49,000. And then just kind of interesting fact, in 2016, we had 37,074 people attend the shows. This isn't including who was part of the shows and rehearsing. This is just who attended and walked through our door. Of those days of use in 2016, 2.97% of those were from commercial, 0% were non-resident nonprofits, and 97.3% was discount or free use of the nonprofit, city, and school district. Some of our challenges. Seating count. Ideally, to attract shows, we need to be around 1,200 seats, and we're only at 783. But for the community groups, 783 sometimes is actually too much. So when you're looking at just supporting the community, we are where we need to be. We're not a one-stop shop. And when a group comes in from out of town, what they want is they want somebody who's going to take care of ticketing and marketing and the front of house and the backstage catering, and we're not set up for that. We're set up just as a rental house. You get the 4 walls and the equipment and 1 supervisor, and that's it. Design and the age of the facility. The design was based off of 1974 engineering for acoustics and the grid, and it's not sufficient for today's equipment. Also, the grid needs to be 1.5 times the height of the proscenium. Our proscenium is at 15, and our grid is at 27, and it really should be at 37. So it does create some interesting challenges when it comes to rigging, and sometimes requires groups to get specialized drops to fit our space. Traditional dates. This is for renters who have used the same time of frame of the year, whether it's like the third Friday of June or the second Saturday of May. For consistently, it guarantees that they have that first right of refusal for as long as they use the date. For the community groups, it's a great thing, and for us, it does help being able to look 2 years out and kind of know what our usage is going to be and where. But at the same time, it makes it difficult to attract new users, as we have to work around those traditional dates or see if somebody's willing to give them up. We have no budget to attract shows. In most facilities, the way it works is that you actually pay for the show to come, and then you do ticket sales and merchandise and concessions to make your money back. And because we don't have that money, what happens is when we do get a group who's interested in coming from the outside, we have to try to get as many pre-sales as possible so that they feel that they're going to be cost recovery. Otherwise, they cancel, which is what happened with the New Shanghai Circus and the Grand Russian Ballet, Swan Lake. The FCC, Legislative, OSHA, NFPA, ANSI, ICC, and ADA, these are all organizations or federal government that, they change regulations, standards, and laws that causes us to either have to change what we're doing, get new training. The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission. There's the biggest one that we're dealing with right now, as they just sold off the 600 megahertz frequencies to T-Mobile, which is now forcing us to have to buy new wireless intercom and new wireless mics so we can move off of the 600. Failure to do that by 2020 will result in fines. Legislative, whether it's federal or state, constantly changing laws. We just had AB 190 that passed through that now requires all technicians who this is their primary work to earn their OSHA 10 or OSHA 30, depending on what position they're in, whether they're a worker or supervisor, and then renew it every 5 years. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. NFPA is the National Fire Protection Agency. ANSI is the American National Standards Institute. ICC is the International Code Council, and then ADA is the American Disabilities Act, and all of them constantly are updating the regulations and standards. Staff training. We have a very low budget for staff training. We try to maximize it the best we can. The problem is it's specialized training that usually requires us to travel. A lot of times the closest training we can find is Vegas. And kind of depending on what it is, sometimes it could be Pennsylvania. So we do try to alternate whether we're sending one out or send two out to get the training, try to maximize that budget. But then also with the fast advancing technology and the ever-changing shows and people come up with new things, it does require us to try to stay up on that training as much as possible so that we know what's coming in or what we're going to be looking at coming in. Along with staffing levels, we are very low on the staffing when you look at everything that we support. Between the days of usage plus the off-site technical support, we could definitely use either at least another part-timer or to eliminate the one part-timer we have and go to a full-timer. But we do make it work with keeping the overtime down. But we do incur about $4,000, $5,000 worth of overtime a year, trying to keep up. And then with the fast advancing technology, sometimes we're either lacking in having that new technology that we need for a specific kind of show, or just you spend money now to upgrade, and then 3 years down the road, you're having to upgrade again because the equipment changed. Kind of give you an example with audio. They've gone to networkable audio, and in the past 5 years, we've seen 4 different protocols come out, and 3 of which have already gone away. For training, too, we do try to partner with the Brewery Arts Center, the Peppermill, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, UNR, and WNC to try to maximize when they're doing something, or try to have a bigger pull to bring somebody in the area. Now, projects. So on the left, we've got completed projects that we've done. So we've got phase 1 of the rigging and phase 2 of the rigging in '96 and 2004. The moving of the ticket booth from the center of the lobby to the west end or east end with the ADA ramp. lighting dimmer electrics and lighting position network upgrades, carpet, and phase 2 of the ADA. Future projects that we have the one that everybody likes to ask about, seats. So currently there's 197,852,000 out of approximately 320 that we need to complete the seats. One of the reasons that's so high is because with code changes from the ICC is seats have to be wider and aisles have to be wider. So we have to cut new electrical, drill new bolt holes. So, and then also we're trying to wrap it into a bigger project when, like, if any infrastructure money comes in. So, because we have to put scaffolding to do any work on the ceiling, and the best time to do that is when the seats are out. So the ideal is to get the seats out, do the overhead work, and then bring the new seats in. An orchestra pit.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah,
On the seats, if we have to make the aisles wider and seats wider, how many seats are we going to lose?
approximately 100.
Okay, so fair amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's providing ADA regulations don't change between now and then and require us to add more ADA spaces.
Okay.
The orchestra pit, right now it's the original design, which requires 6 people plus 1 theater staff to undo. And it's a fair amount of work, as Commissioner Casiopo can attest to. Yeah, we've spent many hours down there. The new orchestra pit that we're looking at will only take 2 people to do. It'll still take about 2 hours, but the difference is it will be able to do choir risers or stairs up to the stage. It won't just be either an open pit or a thrust. New acoustic panels, more acoustic panels, and a sound system upgrade. As I said, with the engineering, it was designed for 1974 acoustics, and that's changed quite a bit. We now need to add about 5,000 square feet of acoustic panels to the back wall. And we need to add acoustic clouds. And we can't do any sound upgrades until we have all the acoustics in, and then we design the sound system for the acoustics that we have. So if we were to try to design the system now, it'd be based off of our acoustics, and we add the clouds, it would be compatible. Just some lobby upgrades, getting permanent curtains instead of the temporary, and just kind of sprucing it up a bit. New paint and Wayne's carpet for the auditorium. You know, we still have the old orange carpet in there. And then under possible projects, these are ones that either staff is looking into for whether it's grants or other funding sources or things that users have kind of come up with that they would like us to look at. And that's going to LED lights in the theater. Right now we're all incandescent. It'll have a huge savings on labor, on consumables between light bulbs and gels, which is what colors the lights, and then also on electricity. Going to a motorized rigging instead of the hand-operated. Raising the grid, which would be an expensive one, but actually getting it to the proper height that it needs to be at for our proscenium. Extending the backstage, so pushing the backstage wall into the gym by about 10 to 15 feet, so we have more room for storage. Redesign of a loading dock, so we have better access to the stage. Right now, sets have to come in. They have to be under 5 feet wide and under 77 inches tall to get through our doors. And the redesign would include a roll-up door so you could get taller sets through. So there is a fair amount of construction that has to happen on the stage, which is not ideal with the curtains. Adding a balcony to try to bring up the seat count. Adding a scene shop. And then putting some more I-beams over the orchestra pit and thrust to allow us to hang more stuff and support shows out there. And that brings you to the end. And with that, I invite you to come see our current show that's going on, which is Into the Woods. It's being put on by Youth Theater Carson City. They're our contract class in there. This is their second weekend, and they will be doing a show Friday at 7, Saturday at 7, and Sunday at 2. So with that, is there any questions?
Thank you. I want to thank you for a really comprehensive report, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that. I just want to note, first of all, that when we did the survey for the master plan, we were all surprised to find out it was the Baldrick Theater that was the most popular facility, Parks facility in Carson City in terms of usage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really great. And boy, you know, you've got a huge menu of things that you need to do, much less would like to do. So a couple of questions. One, you said you don't have budget to attract shows, but could our visitors center maybe help with that, or are they? I guess the first question.
They could possibly help, but it doesn't seem to have, been that energetic to go that way just yet, but it is definitely something we could look into the future.
And then in terms of the number of events that you're doing auxiliary, the epic rides and all of this, has there been a big increase in terms of, you got the same staff basically, but you've got a lot more events that you need to be involved with? Is that the case?
Yeah, we have seen an increase as more and more of the city has wanted our PA systems and stages. For example, next Wednesday, we're hauling a stage and PA down to the fire station for their promotion ceremony. So, but we have seen an increase, but we also have seen a few drop-offs, like when we got rid of the Nevada Fair. So.
Okay. And the last thing, you said you were looking at grants. Anything positive in the future? Have you seen anything yet that might help with some of these projects that we need to do?
Not at the moment. The main one that we're looking at right now is trying to find some that will support the LED upgrade. So, and that's been the tricky one.
To double up on the grants question, I was wondering if T-Mobile bought 600 megahertz channel. Are there any grants available for that?
There are no grants. The only thing that's happening is a few of the wireless mics are offering, sorry, I just spaced what they're calling it, but basically you can return systems that operate within the 600, and they'll give you some money back, kind of a buyback program. The problem is that the wireless mics range anywhere from 7 to 10,000 per dual channel, and they're only giving about 600 back. So it is something, but it's not sufficient enough to try to replace the equipment. So
They're
but
giving about $600, but it's
Yeah.
going to be about $10,000 to replace it.
Yeah.
How long has the 600 channel been in service?
The 600 megahertz has been in service, I don't know, since they pretty much discovered it. It's just been recent, since April that the FCC sold it off and has made it so that we can't operate.
So Carson City's had like that for years. Or
Yeah.
The theater has.
Yeah, we've been operating the 600s for probably about 20 years now.
Okay. So it's the end of its life.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Nice report, by the way.
Thank you.
Do any of our future needs require additional needs? Like if you kick out the back of the stage to create more backstage space, you have to do seating? Does one trigger something else is what I'm asking.
Not at this point in time will one trigger the other. It's just that there's some, like I was saying, between the seats and the acoustic panels and paint where it makes more sense to do them in a certain order.
Sure.
But there isn't any that will trigger one project to have to be done if another project is done.
I have a question. A couple weeks ago, I went to the open house that the Public Works had. It was very nice. And they were touting the fact that they're going to replace all the lighting in all the city buildings with the LED. Is the theater part of that replacement program, or are we independent of that?
They replaced everything that was a standard light bulb, but they did not audit or touch the theatrical lights.
That was an energy retrofit project. Right.
They took great pains to state that it really didn't cost the city anything to do that retrofit. Is that a true statement?
That's the objective, is that the long-term benefit and reduction in utility costs throughout the year will pay for the project.
Too bad the theater couldn't have been part of it, but anyway, thank you for everything you do. We do appreciate it, and that was a great report. Any other questions?
So thanks again for a great report. So you mentioned that revenue from the theater only in the last year was $49,000. Do you know what the revenue was when you include all those other sources that you mentioned for that year?
If we take in contract classes, the auditorium, and the equipment, not including ancillary rooms, I don't not sure, know that one off the top of my head, we would actually be up at about 70,000, because we bring in about 15,000 in equipment for the year.
So then the question is, does that cover all the costs associated with the theater, or how much percentage does it cover?
It covers about 45 to 50% of the cost of the theater, because as I mentioned, 97% of our days of usage are free or discounted use off of our direct cost. So if it costs us $69 an hour to run a theater, they're paying $34.50.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Bagwell?
So I just wanted to thank you for the report, but more importantly, thank you for the work. Because I can tell from your report just how dedicated you are to having a successful theater and community center, and maybe you don't get thanked very often because you're the guy behind the scenes doing all the work, but I just want to relay a personal thank you.
And that's a good point, because Eric's not only making sure it's all happening, he's in the orchestra pit with usually pushing some of us out of the way so we can get it done right. So he's very hands-on. Yeah.
I want to just put that on the record. It's very
Even
I know since the school district, we use the theater and whatnot, and there's a nice partnership there. I don't know if you've done it already, but it might be worth reaching out to Richard Stokes and, more importantly, Dan Davis, who's our new information officer, to see if, through the internet and whatnot, if there's a mechanism, to get some publicity out there about the theater, through some of the contacts the school district has. So, just a thought.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Now, just to clarify, so what's been budgeted so far is $197,000 for the seats in terms of that list that you had? I forget what's in the capital.
Right now, we just have that 197,000. It's been sitting there mostly earmarked for seats. I mean, we could move it to another project if that was desired, but since everybody wants the seats right now, that's where we've been holding it for.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to acknowledge Erik. He is the kindest, sweetest, most hardworking person. He'll never give himself any of the credit, but he does so much here. And he doesn't just take care of the theater. He wears a lot of hats. He's the technical genius for the department. I can tell you, if you don't know what to do, actually I would say for the city, if you don't know what to do or how to handle it, call Erik and he can fix it or find a way to make it happen. But he's really supportive. He also oversees the staff that manage our youth programs, and as you know, we've had a challenging year with that. He's really dedicated himself to try to help turn that program around and support many of the other recreation staff. And, whatever you need, he always says yes, and he just takes care of it. So we really appreciate him and all that he does.
All right. We're all done? Okay.
Unless there's any more questions.
I wasn't sure. You were giving me a look like, do we go on? All right. Well, thank you so much. Pardon?
I just had another comment. We're going to be looking at the strategic plan tonight, and there's a lot of, kind of crossover we're looking at. We need to work with this guy more and these people more and this kind of thing. And I'm hoping we can see more cooperation for you, because you need it.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, so much. We're going to move on to agenda item 3B, a presentation by Mark Salinas, Director of the Arts and Culture from Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. Mr. Salinas.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Jen, for having me here tonight. My name is Mark Salinas. I'm the Director of Arts and Culture here in Carson City. My office is in the Visitors Bureau, which we recently renamed to the Culture and Tourism Authority about 2 weeks ago. I have the pleasure of knowing a couple of you already on the board. Just want to frame tonight's discussion as one of research in progress. To share with you, there's a goal in mind, and I just want to give you a little brief background before I start the presentation. This presentation is of a public sculpture purchase, which would represent the first piece to be introduced in the Carson City's art collection since the Arts and Culture Master Plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors in February 2016. Of course, in May 2016, the 1% transient occupancy tax was passed for the implementation of the Arts and Culture Master Plan, which states our mission to create such a collection and hire me as its administrator. And of course, I joined the Visitors Bureau in October 2016. My one-year anniversary is coming up here. To administer the Arts and Culture Master Plan and to write the city's policies and procedures for public art programming, which is nearing draft completion now. And after being reviewed with the DA's department, this municipal document will be reviewed and commented on by other city departments. Once the city review process is complete, the DA's office will then edit and incorporate the relevant and necessary considerations into the policy. So, break out the popcorn. Here we go. So with the sculpture in mind, a target date in mind, and a location in mind, I present to you Michelle Riley's Inside the Mind of Da Vinci. Michelle Riley is a Carson City artist. This is the piece in 2016 in the Black Rock Desert. This is Michelle Riley here. She lives in Carson City. This is her working at an event at the Bliss Mansion. The piece that we're looking at is a larger-than-life sculpture head of Leonardo da Vinci emerging from Earth, referencing our Renaissance past. Michelle said that it is a piece about creative problem solving. It is a piece about the power of invention. It's 20 feet long, 7 feet wide, about 9 feet tall. It's constructed with steel and concrete. The base that you see there is actually welded to the piece, and so this is sort of its carriage, so to speak, of how it travels. The piece is currently installed outside of the library at UNR. It was installed there in February. I was there to witness the installation and see the process and procedures of how that needs to occur. As you see here, the piece was set down directly in front of the lawn, whereas in the desert, you saw it was submerged, that 6 inches of that steel, let's call it a pallet. The concave of this, let me go back, the piece is called Inside of the Mind of Da Vinci, and unfortunately for the lights, maybe in a picture later on you'll see, there is an area in the forehead where you can look in through a glass orb and see the concave section of this. And on that is reliefs of sketches and other inventions and texts that Leonardo da Vinci made. Here, for the purposes of UNR, they chose to fill in that negative space with sand. It will be on display at UNR until mid-October of this year. A crane was necessary to place it. The lawn in front of the library is about the size of a soccer field, and this went in probably about maybe 20 to 30 yards in the center of the field. There's the field itself. It travels on a flatbed truck. This piece has withstood the rigors of Burning Man. Out in the middle of the desert, people participating in it. The artist encourages people to use this sculpture as a meeting place for discussion, for creative ideas. She invites people to walk upon it. It's also survived our past winter outdoors. And in general, I just think it's a wonderful first piece for Carson. It's a figurative sculpture. I think it's easily recognizable. I think it's a good first step. It's by a Carson City artist. I think there's tremendous quality and beauty in this. I think there's peace to it, actually. I have to say, when I saw it rolling into UNR, it was on a flatbed truck. And there was anyone who had a camera on them, which is kind of everyone nowadays, stopped and started taking pictures of this. And it got me to thinking about a plan that I had for this. Of course, we're all familiar with STEAM and STEM, science, technology, math, and engineering, and the introduction of art as a creative problem-solving approach to these industries. I think this sculpture could be a meeting place for youth education for STEAM or STEM days. There are other cities like Corvallis, Oregon, that actually has Da Vinci Days, where they celebrate. Here we have a kinetic challenge, we have guest speakers. But, looking at an artwork to actually be a symbol of creative problem solving, which happens a lot in this room, but also creative education for children. And so with that, my proposed location was here outside of the community center on the southeast corner of Williams and North Roop Street, which is where the star is right there. This is a location of high visibility. It is a location close to the library to create these STEAM and STEM programs, these annual Da Vinci Days, so to speak. And and as I mentioned, it's I think it's a tribute to what happens in this room here year round, as far as inventive, creative problem solving. This is a picture I took earlier. There's some orange tape, just trying to envision where it could be. I always kind of work backwards. I always try to imagine how it looks in the newspaper or how it looks on your phone when you send it to your friend. And I like the idea of having Sea Hill behind it. This is a quick Photoshop, but this is sort of the proposed angle and location of how I could see this resting. I would probably propose sand, maybe a 3 or 4 foot perimeter of sand around the piece. That way maintenance workers can easily cut the lawn without having to run into this piece. One of the things I'm looking for in creating this collection are pieces that are not only impactful and significant and unique, but pieces that in our first few steps are not going to require specialized skill to maintain. This is an outdoor piece. It survived the desert. It survived the snow. I also wanted to take note, I'm sorry, I'm introducing this as late material. All these images are at the front door. This is an in-house publication that we made at the Visitors Bureau covering the story. And this magazine is also available at the front door if you want to read up more about Michelle and her background. That concludes the presentation, but I would be happy to go through the images again, discuss any questions or visions you foresee in making this happen. Of course, the purchase of the sculpture would be out of that 1% transient occupancy tax. And we're looking to not only partner with Parks and Rec, but partner with Public Works and any other department within the city, the senior center, the library, where art may live. This represents the, I think, physically and financially the largest step that we would take, and a step like this probably would not be taken, financially speaking, for another 3 years. But in thinking of what art could be, maybe for discussions about the bike racks, art could also easily be two-dimensional work that hangs in City Hall. And of course, the maintenance between one and the other is vast. One maybe just requiring framing and some security mounts to a wall, and another one requiring a lawnmower.
Any questions? Commissioner Curtis?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to note the artwork that's in this room. For people, I don't know if they can see it on the TV or not, but it's a clarity of Lake Tahoe in its photographs, and they're just fantastic. They really are. It's really neat. Secondly, that's one of my favorite people. Da Vinci. I mean, he's just, the more you learn about him, the more you realize what an incredible person he was. Would this be a permanent, it would be permanent?
Yes.
Okay.
Financially speaking, maybe you've heard of the Space Whale in Reno that the city was going to rent. Similar piece that had a similar venue in the desert, a little larger, but the rent of that piece for 1 year was $65,000 or so and included the installation. This is not that. And, it would be something that, would live here. I mean, as I recall, that the city of Reno has utilized, I can't remember the artist's name, but the Believe text as the marketing efforts of the city now. So any publication or Instagram or pamphlet you have says that Believe, and it's an interesting strategy.
So I'm sure you, thought this out, that orientation there. So in that orientation, it'd be visible to people driving westbound on 50. Was there any thought of orienting it right at the intersection so eastbound traffic and southbound traffic would see it?
We, Michelle and I drove up and down all the streets as best we could without the sheriff pulling us over with our camera out the window. And we think, what you could see in the picture is the best. But as this thing comes down from a crane, we're going to allow literally some wiggle room in the back digging of that. I think it's about 6 inches in depth. So we can actually turn it once it's on site, because once it's down, it's going to be down, and we want to put that metal pallet below grade. So it won't be a rectangle that we would be digging out of the grass. It'd be, I don't even know what the geometric shape would be, but and that would allow some decision-making there on site.
One other question, I think that does tie into the library, the theater, and all that. Did anyone look at all in a downtown location with the new downtown and the open areas we have down there? Was that a thought at any point?
I had looked actually at Mills Park, but I think it's important to, for my purposes, really to be an arts and culture advocate for all of Carson City. And we have several bike projects that are going to happen downtown, in the downtown corridor. And of course, coming from the Visitors Bureau point of view, all of Carson City is what we want to attract visitors to, and all of Carson City is what we want to show off our residents as being, a creative community. So I thought out here was yeah.
So then,
It takes up a lot of space.
It's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the STEAM and, Da Vinci Days and those kinds of things, so are you going to be working with the library and the schools to try to
Yeah,
see what you
this
can
was
put together?
actually installed at the UNR library because Michelle had used some 3D printing in one portion of the process. And I know they have 3D printers across the street. And I'm already working with the library. You may have heard that we just won our first National Endowment of the Arts grant. It's a literary grant that I wrote in December, partnering. It challenges, I'm getting a little off subject, but it challenges communities to create month-long programming around pre-selected novels. And so I'm already partnering with Sina and her staff there, as well as the museum, our next door neighbor. So I look forward to really using this as a beacon for education and invention.
I was just going to say, I saw this yesterday at UNR.
You did?
Yeah, we went there for orientation, and there were, I'm not sure, probably a couple hundred prospective UNR students there, and it just started conversation. I mean, every time I walked by, you could hear different people, everything from, what the heck is this, to, but it was all positive to, wow, look at that, and people just admiring it and checking it out and, asking questions about it. So I really think something like this I agree with you. It's kind of a statement piece, and it really sets a nice tone for arts in the community.
It was pretty impactful when it was riding down the
I bet.
through campus on that flatbed. You know, as I said, I had a piece in mind, a location in mind, and I do have a date in mind. I'm aiming for about 3 months from now. For this to actually be part of the Nevada Day Parade. This year's theme is arts and entertainment. And we'd like to see this actually ride on that flatbed in the parade. I'm putting together a ticketed event, an arts and culture ticketed event. The working title is the Carson Biennial, and it's a costume ball as a new source of funding for public art. And we would like this to sort of be there with a fire dedication by Controlled Burn. And 2 of the Burning Man founders have agreed to be in the parade as grand marshals and grand dignitaries. And so this is a good keystone piece fitting into a lot of good steps going forward.
Yeah, I may have missed it. What is the investment for the piece?
You know, I haven't, of course, I haven't written any contract with the artist, and being an artist myself, I want to be a little observant of putting her financials out there, but I will say that a similar piece that Reno was purchasing was around $65,000, and that was for just rental for 1 year. And this is I would say in the same ballpark, but a permanent piece that we own. And of course, because the artist lives here in Carson City, my thoughts are that in the contract, and this you know, she offered to do this, was to maintain the piece for the first 2 or 3 years.
I was going to follow up to Commissioner Glenn, was kind of the annual maintenance upkeep costs. Do we have any ballpark numbers what that'll cost the city?
I've asked Michelle, and she said it's literally pennies. That's the artist saying this because she knows how to use the concrete and paint it like that. But you know, again, this is I would consider this a low maintenance piece because of its material and because of the artist living so close by and offering in that contract. I mean, she's really proud to have this piece in Carson City, and I think we would be proud to have it.
I'm just gonna make a comment, but I'd say I have a general appreciation for art, and I didn't actually realize that it came through late, so I didn't see this before the meeting, but when you put it on the wall, it made me want to take a picture of the wall. So that thing must be really impressive to see it in person, so I think it's a really good idea, and I think you've done a lot of good work with creativity and stuff.
Thank you.
And kind of covered all your bases. To kind of envision what it would be, and I like how it's tied together with the artist being from Carson. Yeah. And originally, when you described it, I imagined it was going to be here temporarily, like it's at UNR. So that'd be really kind of a neat honor, really, for us to be able to put it here permanently.
Thank you. I was just I was just on a tour yesterday with some members of the Boys and Girls Club, a little collaboration with the Adams Hub, and we're speaking about what site-specific means in terms of murals, and how, you know, an artwork can speak to the architecture of the building, it can speak to the plants or nature nearby. And so I think it's important going forward that, you know, it's just not plop art where we just buy it and stick it someplace, that it actually has a couple of layers of value. And I think really tying this in with the community center, which is, as Erik said, I guess the theater is the most popular park, and with the library are 2 strengths.
Any other questions or comments? Any from the public?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Question. The reverse side of it, of the sculpture. Yeah, that hollowed out part. What do you propose? Will it be just like that? Is that the way it is designed to be shown? Or will it be filled? Will it be covered?
So the concave portion is actually exposed artwork on the inside. What you see here, it's not to my aesthetic because the palette hasn't been placed in the ground. And I would envision sand, as I said, maybe a 3 to 4 foot perimeter around the piece. So it's sort of, so that palette disappears. The pole is structural. That could be painted brown, I would imagine. But the inside, this picture doesn't do it much justice, but the inside is very beautiful. Many, many drawings of his as a relief on the inside. And the note that Michelle gave me was, the interior has etched onto the surface Leonardo sketches and writings. It is a community spot for gathering and sharing artistic and inventive ideas. The back of the head is cut into 2 archways, allowing entrance into the hollowed-out interior of the piece. Inside the mind of Da Vinci consists of concrete, bronze, recycled glass, and metal. And I guess the recycled glass would be that little glass orb on his forehead.
Okay, so the way you're explaining it is not just a facade on the outside. It is actually very artistic on the inside of the egg, if you will. Okay, well, see, I didn't see that. It could be very interesting trying to do something with that structural bar that's vertical. There's a litany of things that could be probably done with that would add something a little more aesthetic than just a bar.
It might be the places for signage.
That's very, very interesting. Concrete does need maintenance. I'll just say that. It does. And especially in the weather, that may add to the actual piece itself, the wear and tear that the elements do have on concrete. It does have on concrete. But I'm just saying that there is a fact that anything concrete will be attacked by this environment that we have here
Michelle
at
is
4,600 feet.
I concur with you. Michelle is native to the environment, and she has a long history of working with steel and concrete. She's actually working on a couple of pieces for UNR right now, commissioned concrete wolves that will be set outdoors. I definitely wouldn't pick her if I didn't trust her.
I want to thank you very much, and I'd like to get your cards so I can discuss other things offline with this. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Let's do that again. Item 4, staff updates, discussions only. Review and discussion regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department Strategic Plan by Jennifer Budge. Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We've discussed the strategic plan quite a bit just through updates over the past 6 to 8 months. But so I'm going to kind of skip over the staff report and try to get into the meat of the strategic plan today so we can have as much of a detailed discussion as you want. Also, as late material today, you'll see in front of you that sort of goes with the strategic plan. I have provided it to you before, but I wanted you to have a final copy of what the Board of Supervisors approved. As part of in the strategic plan, we did do a reorganization of the department. So I provided you with a copy of the new organizational chart. I know it's small. If you'd like one bigger, I'm happy to provide it for you. I was running out the door when I printed it, so I apologize for the small print, but I'm happy to do that. And then as we go through some staff changes, I'll end up getting you one that has all of the staff names on it as well. But we have some additional movement with staff right now, so I'm going to kind of hold off on that till I get that to you. But that kind of goes in concert with the strategic plan, as it was one of the needs identified through our process. So I do want to thank the city manager for supporting this effort. We didn't have it in the budget, and we went to the city manager, and he also felt that it was an important task moving forward, that we really look at the whole department and we look at it from all of our boards and commissions perspective, from city management, and as well as from staff. And it was really important to me that we had a process that involved every single one of our full-time staff, and we did that, which was great. We have, a lot to work on, but I think it was really important that the staff was heard and that their ideas were brought forward. And we made sure that every idea and solution and things that that came out in the staff workshops are identified in this plan. So it's not a plan that I came up with or just the parks managers put forward. It's something that really came from the bottom up. So I think that's really important. So we have buy-in from the staff and our boards and a way to move forward. If you go to this page here with the logo at the top, previously, we didn't have a mission statement for the department. We didn't have a clear vision for the department that people could get behind. And thanks to all of you for helping us kind of hone in on the wording and the vision for that in the future. So, your comments and involvement is also reflected in this document. This is sort of the one sheet that gives you the overview of the strategic plan and how we want to take the department moving forward. And, not everything is 100% great, and we have a lot to work on, but we do have so much that's going really well, and so we want to build on that. And these are the strategic objectives that we can kind of take what's going well and build on that and try to move forward. And so our strategic objectives are participation, so to enhance community engagement and participation through our programs, services, and facilities. And there's supporting goals with each of these strategic objectives. Diversifying our funding. I'd like to diversify and increase funding to reduce the burden on the city's general fund. We are highly subsidized. We'd like to diversify, through grants and foundation support and sponsorships and donations, and really try to get some additional support for the department and not just rely on that one key source of funding. So that's what that goal is about. Also, operational excellence, enhancing our ability to deliver and improve the quality of the department's core services. As you've heard and as you'll see in the future, we are asked to do a lot of different things than just parks and recreation. We provide technical support, like Erik said, for other special events. We do a lot of things for everything downtown. We provide landscape architecture support for all projects throughout the community. It's not just parks. And we really need to figure out what our priorities are. When we're pulled in so many different directions, the quality of our service goes down, and we're not able to just take care of parks and keep them open, safe, and clean. So it's sort of taking another look at what we do and figuring out what those core services are and trying to really focus on those and do those really well, and then see where we can add on rather than just adding onto our plate and our plate and our plate continually. And then staff engagement, strengthen our work environment through a talented and committed workforce. We have some fantastic staff, and through the recession, they really got beat down. And it's not just this organization. I saw it when I worked at Washoe County. All through the nation, parks departments were hit more than any other, agency, and we really need to build that back up. Staff we're continually doing more with less. It really wears on staff. We need to really re-engage and educate the workforce and make them work smarter, not harder, and help support their goals in their future. And that's through staff training, and those things were cut during the recession, and so it's trying to find ways to build that back in. And so we're able to provide better services for our citizens. And so there's supporting goals through each of those. And then if you could skip back to, we're going to skip in the strategic plan. And I apologize, there's not page numbers. So where it has the strategic goals, you'll see these pages. And this is really the meat of the plan. And this is dynamic. I mean, this is not a set in stone document. We're completely open to modifying it, but it's just what the staff developed and came up with based on your support and all the feedback that we got. But there's assignments to support all of these things. How are we going to get there? Who's going to do the work? What partnerships do we need? How are we going to diversify our funding? We can't just say that. We have to do some work to make these things happen. And so for each goal, there's a list of ideas and vision and tangible projects. And some of the things we've already done, like one item in here is to do a department reorganization that meets certain goals, and we've already done that. So, I mean, we've really accomplished a lot before this was even, finalized. But we have a lot of staff, and each staff will sort of own some certain sections and kind of make this happen. So that's, I guess, kind of it in a very short time frame, and I'm happy to answer any questions and, hear any concerns that you guys might have, moving forward.
All right. First off, Jennifer, thank you for all the hard work that went into this. I appreciate it, as I do believe the other commissioners do. And then I think Commissioner Curtis has some questions for you.
Of course. No, I didn't know if you wanted to go page by page, but I just had a couple of comments, here and there, like the one you just reviewed. You mentioned that you're going to develop a marketing plan, survey the public regularly. Can you give a little more detail on that? Are you going to be doing like a survey once a year, or, how's that going to happen?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner Curtis. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. That's going to happen a lot of ways, and we've already started to implement that. So we purchased a SurveyMonkey account. It's very inexpensive. It was $300, but it gives us an electronic way to continually survey and ask the public what they think. What do they want for programming? How did they go to an event? Were they happy with it? Were they happy with our facility when you rented it? Was it clean? Did you have good customer service? Surveys can be all over the board. So we've started already surveying groups like tournaments that participate with the city. Were you happy with the softball league? Just 3 or 4 questions to gauge the customer's perspective. Did you like the facility? Was it maintained well? Was the price appropriate? Just starting to gauge those types of things. And then we'll do one like at the end of the summer camp this year, and we'll send that out to all the parents. What did you think about the programming, the cost, all of those things. So eventually we'll have surveys, frankly, for everything. Something that's very short and quick, but helps us kind of gauge how we're doing and what we can work on and do better. And it doesn't take a lot of time from the participant standpoint to fill those out. But we want to know how we're doing, and we want to continually improve. So we're not there yet as far as facility rentals, but what I would like is after every special event, every pavilion rental, you automatically get generated a survey to find out about our facilities and costs and how we did. So we're working toward that. So we've started to implement that, but it's not, 100% done yet. Does that help? And I think you had a second question, not about the survey.
Well, actually, many. But the thing is, so when you're doing this, then, are you going to be reporting to us occasionally then in terms of how these goals are going? And because I'm really interested to see how well some of these things work. I'm a big believer, especially diversifying the funding, so maybe we can get some things accomplished. And one of the things that, I'm kind of big and trying to look into is like neighborhoods with, parks, et cetera, trying to get them maybe a survey or something like that about what would you like to see in the park and how would you like to get it?
Yeah.
What would you like to do to help us get it, that kind of thing.
And we can use that SurveyMonkey avenue as a great way to do that. It's really low cost, it's super affordable, and it's easy to get out there. So we can use that mechanism for any type of survey or feedback. And then from those surveys, you can generate reports. I can send you pie charts and all kinds of data based on what people think. So once we get those implemented, I can definitely provide that information for you. And then I think you asked about a marketing plan. So one of the goals is, we haven't done any marketing for years. It's just not in the budget. We get that, but it's not, realistic if we want programs and things to be successful. So one avenue of that, and I'll give you an AmeriCorps update later, but we will be getting a PR and marketing AmeriCorps Vista for an entire year, and one of their to-do lists is to develop, a marketing plan for the department. And, that'll include social media. We just did the activity guide for the first time in 8 years for the summer. Dan Earp, our recreation superintendent, put that together, and it was already 42 pages. and that was an abbreviated version. We wanted so much more. We're going to be doing 3 of those a year, so we'll have some hard copy information. We're starting to develop that again, and you know, it won't be overnight, but we'll hopefully move forward and be back out in the community and, you know, showing everybody all the great things that we have to offer.
Still on the first page, a goal on staffing would be to be within national standards. Do you have any idea of what that would be?
I did just get a report from the National Recreation and Park Association. We submitted all of our department data into their database so we can compare ourselves based on other organizations of our size. And it's something that I'll probably bring back to the board in detail. It's kind of not a simple answer. I wish it was. We're actually doing fairly well in a lot of areas. And then we're significantly under in others. So it's kind of a balance, and, you know, not all organizations are set up like us. So it's not always an apples to apples comparison, but they do look at similar population base, and then that's kind of the crux of that. So I'll bring that NRPA report back to you guys, and we can kind of dive into that so you know where we shape up compared to others. Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Actually, I can skip a couple pages. I just want to comment on something that you said. It says, I think it's the 3rd page. It says, staff feels strongly about supporting the local community directly. And I'm finding that as I'm looking at reserving something in a park or dealing with some of the issues that's in our neighborhood, that, yeah, I think it's really important that we remember that these parks and other facilities were built for the citizens. And therefore, I think, you know, dealing with some of their concerns is really important. I understand that, you know, we're trying to, you know, get additional revenue by bringing in, you know, events and heads and beds and all that good kind of stuff. But hopefully our focus is on the parks for us, the citizens.
And that's something that the staff really felt strongly about, and that's why it still came through, is they felt like over the past few years, the focus has gone away from the Carson City resident, or even just those that live, you know, in adjoining communities, and it all has been focused on these traveling tournaments and special events, and, you know, so many resources have been allocated, staff or financial resources, toward making those successful, that we've sort of forgotten about that. And we want to refocus on our citizens and how can we better support them while still accommodating, you know, those outside events.
Yes, so SWOT analysis, opportunities. I just, you know, okay. Well, I'll just make my comment. Like when we're looking at, you know, doing the improvements at Ross Gold Park, has there been any contact with the people in the neighborhood there to see what they may be interested in improvements? I know when we were out there on our tour last year, we talked about, you know, you mentioned an idea might be, since it's near a fire station, you put a fire truck in there for the kids to play on. So is there going to be, as we make these kinds of improvements to the parks, asking for any input from the neighbors or maybe a survey?
For that specific example, we do need to update that park master plan for Ross Gold Park. There are a lot of issues, as you saw on site, not just aging infrastructure, but we have significant issues with the pond. And we need a plan for that, and that's going to have to involve the neighbors. We're going to have, you know, engaging public comment, probably a survey as part of that, to try to reimagine that park while addressing some of those issues. We have to have a plan if we're going to do grants and go ask for funding. I can't ask for funding and then say, oh, we'll figure it out later. So it's always good to have that master plan and hand a foundation and say, look, this is what we want to do. Here's the park. You know, can't you picture it? Don't you want to fund this? So for that specific example, you know, we do need to do a whole new master planning effort.
Because I would hope, for example, on that too, though, that maybe the paper could put something in if you're having a meeting or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, other people in the community could attend as well. Because a lot of people do use Roscoe Park, for example, from all over Carson City. And sometimes people have a tendency to think it's their park because it's in their neighborhood. And we do need to remember it's a citywide park. So, but I think it's important because probably the people that are using it the most are the people that live closest to it. So, making sure that you get input from the neighbors and the community itself would be, I think, a great idea.
Another thing that I like to do, hopefully, we have received verbal approval that we did get the grant, that we didn't get the grant. I mean, we've been tossed around like a ping pong ball on that. So I'm holding my breath until I see it in writing and we get an agreement. But let's say we do get that funding, before we start construction, before we do anything, I always like to notice the neighbors at any park so they know what's going on. You don't want them to just show up at a park and see a backhoe and people are digging and have no clue what's going on. So we always like to try to engage the public and let them know what's going on. So if that does move forward and that does happen, we will make sure to do some outreach to the neighbors, especially those specifically in that neighborhood, and also let the community know.
I guess I'm going to, from that, nothing on the next page. Oh, there's a little 5 down there. Oh,
there are numbers. I just couldn't see. I was too blind. It just didn't come through very well. Yeah. So there are page numbers.
The first thing, it says, community awareness, increase, maintain optimal levels, program registration, facility, blah, blah, for MAC Community Center, aquatic facility and sports complexes. And one of the things, hopefully, we specifically pay attention to is the fairgrounds. The reason why I mentioned that is because we put a couple $1 million into renovating the fairgrounds, and frankly, I think it's underutilized. I think hopefully we'll be able to find ways of, and it would improve, it would be good for heads and beds and all that too, if we could get, bigger things going on out there.
When we bring the fee structure back to the commission, I anticipate quite a robust conversation about the fairgrounds. So I think, yeah, that will be a hot topic, I anticipate.
And then target completion, you have 100% on all these. Can you kind of explain what that means?
So there's a measure for each of these items, and you'll see Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So it's sort of divided in quarters. And so we can report back to you after we get fully staffed and we kind of get our legs under us. We'll be able to probably provide you with regular updates on where we're at with these measures, and we'll have status updates. But since we just it's sort of like hot off the press, so to speak, we don't have an update document for you, but that task will be measured. So if you look, new fee structure is, like if you look on page 7, that first item, a measure is new fee structure completed and approved. So to me, that's completed and approved by the Board of Supervisors. So that means it's gone through you guys, it's gone through staff review. Right now, we're doing our market analysis. We have staff, really trying to dive into that. Where are we at? It would be complete, when that's approved, that's 100% complete. So right now, I would say we're probably 25% in on that particular task because we've done the market analysis, but now we're doing that. The hard part is the staff review, honestly, is we went to 21 different agencies and got their fees. So trying to go through all that information and make it fit for Carson is a lot. It's a huge task.
Yeah, I'm just going to notice on page 7, there's a couple of names there of people that are no longer here. So obviously you're going to
We'll be updating the
You'll be finding
document.
some other people to do it. But I was looking at your org chart, and I know that, Steve's position seemed to be very vital in some ways, and I'm not sure I see it on the org chart. Is there going to be a combination of people kind of doing what he was doing, or?
So the deputy director position was eliminated. The board approved that. We downgraded the position to the park operations superintendent. So essentially, there's sort of 2 deputies now, if you look at it that way. We have a recreation superintendent now and a parks operations superintendent. So kind of operating each side of the house, if you will. Previously, we didn't have a recreation superintendent. We hadn't had one for about 10 years pre-recession. That was Barbara Singer was the last one. So it's sort of trying to build that back up. My personal opinion and direction, and the board was wonderful to approve it, was I'm not a fan of top-heavy organizations. So the cost savings from that downgrading that deputy director position was about $27,000, $28,000. And so we sunk that into the seasonal line item for park maintenance, because in my opinion, our greatest need right now is boots on the ground. We don't need a bunch of administrators. We need people doing the work. So that was that change. I can tell you right now, we'll probably be back to the board to try to we're really struggling getting seasonals. It really doesn't even matter what we pay them. I mean, because the unemployment rate is so low right now, which is tremendous, we have no labor force. Contractors, it's not only, mutually exclusive to us, but we're really having a hard time to get people to do the work, and we're just struggling. So we have a need for some additional full-time park maintenance workers, in my opinion. So it might be taking that seasonal dollars, we would still pay for it and not ask for additional general fund subsidy, but there might be an opportunity, to try to reimagine that. We're just struggling for different ways to do it. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but, we'll probably be bringing something forward to try to make a recommendation.
At the bottom page, you mentioned solicit foundations for funds, et cetera. And, we have the Parks Foundation. And I've asked if you would be able to sometime come to one of our meetings and kind of explain this a little bit and possibilities for our role in helping on some of this. I would like to see us get, more involved in helping.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. That item in particular is really more of like the Pennington Foundation, the Hawkins Foundation, those that write, big checks. So there are some other ones that talk about the Carson City Parks Foundation, though, in particular, that we think that that's the natural partner for that particular task. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities for working with the Parks Foundation locally.
I think I'm almost done. It's excellent, by the way. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it and seeing what the results are.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time to read it. It's a lot to digest, so I get that.
Commissioner Cacioppo?
I just want to reiterate, I think a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate it. And it's refreshing to see, taking a current revised look at things. And you, like everybody else, and when I say you, I mean the department, has been understaffed, as everybody has for so long, and there's no magic potion to make it all better. But I think looking at ways to improve efficiencies and also restructure and not be afraid to ask for, hey, we need additional staff because you've been cut. I know the school district, we've cut people. Trying to bring people back is always a challenge.
Yeah.
And bring positions back. And I think if we want to have a dynamic, parks and recreation department, but, parks and recreation infrastructure in Carson City, something like this is warranted. So I was glad to see under goal number 1, participation, not just surveying the public and whatnot, but updating our websites and whatnot, and making sure when we're getting this participation, whether it's in volunteering or funding or whatever it is, getting that feedback back to the public to let them know, we heard you, we've implemented this, we can't implement this, here's why not. And I think we found that to be hugely important. People are okay being told no when you can't do it. They just want to know something is happening and thought has gone into it. So, thank you though very much. I really thought this was well done.
Jennifer, thank you so much. I know a lot of work went into this, and we appreciate it. And we're going to be revisiting it, correct?
You will. You will see this again and again and again, and it will change, but it's a starting point. But it's definitely a dynamic document, and as we complete things, and we can take them off the list, or we can say, oh, that really was not a good idea, and so, but it's worth a try, Thanks for your support.
Are there any public comments on this item? All right, hearing none.
Did you read it?
Let's move on to item B, Review and discussion regarding the Arlington Square Ice Rink, including the removal of the operation, revenue and expenditures from the city's budget, and direction from the Board of Supervisors for future consideration by private enterprise. Again, Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. This is just sort of to circle back with you. Since we met last, the Board of Supervisors did approve the fiscal 17-18 budget. At the last time we met, you provided some direction to staff wanting to seek out a survey and some other options. And I think, we all agreed that the equipment was well beyond repair. We needed a significant capital investment. Basically, I heard from all of you, and I think the board agreed that it wasn't the highest priority to have the city invest in replacing that equipment, but we would all be open to, a third party if there was some white knight that came forward and wrote us a check. We're more than happy to operate it and make that happen. And maybe it would be at the same location, maybe it'd be at Mills Park, maybe, who knows where that would be. And that was sort of the crux of that survey that we had discussed. There was a little bit of a different direction, at the board level, and, I think we can all understand it and appreciate it. But knowing that the equipment wasn't viable, the board did direct to take the operating piece out of the budget. So it took out the expense side and the revenue side, which was, pretty much a wash. It really didn't impact the department in any other way, knowing that we don't have the viable equipment to operate it, and we won't be moving forward. So it was eliminated from the budget. The board did make a motion. Supervisor Abowd did want to, encourage sort of a third party or private enterprise to maybe possibly partner with us. And should that happen, they, would like to see it come back to this board for consideration should that happen. So if that were to ever happen, it would be through this board, and that was the Board of Supervisors' direction. So I just wanted to circle back with you, make sure you were all aware of the board's direction in the budget, where we are at. If you had any questions moving forward, we can definitely entertain that. And I know Supervisor Bagwell's here to answer any questions about the budget as well.
Commissioner Lehman?
So the question is, we talked about, I don't know, this was quite a while ago, we talked about this, and there was something put in the paper. Was there any community feedback? Did people say, oh, I didn't hear much. Was there much community feedback?
I received one phone call from all the articles in the paper and everything, and it was just, we get it, it's expensive, we would love to see it, occur again. And I did have a wonderful conversation with this woman that contacted me, and I asked her if she had any solutions or ideas or possible funding source, and, that was about it. But I only received one member of the public come forward to talk about it. So we did not do the survey, I want you to know, because we had the board meeting, the Board of Supervisors budget meeting, basically right after we had the Park Commission meeting. So there was no need to do a survey if we don't really have anything to survey them about without that capital investment.
I've always been a proponent of the ice rink, and I guess, at some point, if the community isn't stepping up to the plate, well, the board already made that decision. But I will point out, like I've always said, for some reason, the ice rink was always held to this lofty standard. We heard from the theater that they recover 45–50%. The ice rink recovered more than that. So I never understood why they were held to 100%, but I guess that decision's out of our hands now. So, yeah, and if the community's not stepping up to the plate, I guess that's a done deal, which in my mind is too bad, but so be it.
I do just want to clarify that, if there's a third party that wants to fund, all new equipment, we stand ready and willing to operate it. And, we're more than happy to do that.
I'll comment a little there. It's not the percentage of the ongoing operational that was the consideration. It's where do you get the capital to invest? And the real issues became, do we do the aquatic swimming pool roof? Do we buy the ice rink? And so when it really came down to the needs, and it just came down to the simple needs, and we only have this much money, which one took the higher priority, and so we voted for the pool. And I do firmly believe that if we closed the swimming pool, we'd have more outrage than taking the ice rink. And so it's a matter of making decisions and priorities. And so I don't think the board of supervisors, it never was a discussion on the operating costs. The discussion simply was, this is the capital budget that we have available, and we have to work through all the items on the list. Do we do a $75,000 mower? I mean, who would have ever guessed mowers are $75,000? And so when you looked at everything that we had on the list, it just didn't rise to the higher level.
Did you look at running?
A running lawnmower? Renting? No, I think we looked at all. Yes.
We looked at an annual purchase. So for example, the one in the city of Reno. To give you an example, it was in Steve's staff report a while back. He gave you the different costs, and then we got into the discussion between synthetic ice and real ice and renting and, third-party operation. So the city of Reno operates their rink that's over by the Aces ballpark. The Aces contribute something like $100,000 annually for that equipment that's not owned. So there's still a significant investment, whether it's rental or, owned equipment. It's still pretty significant. So we did look into those options and see what other communities did. And so that was part of that report that Steve provided for you guys.
Yes, well, the press is still here. So I'm just wondering, if we've exhausted all the avenues in terms of any outreach to see if there are interested parties out there. One of the things that, the foundation is doing, for example, we're now supporting 3 or 4 groups that have formed and want to try to get grants, want to try to do fundraisers, et cetera. And we talked about this when this came up, about the possibility of a group of people forming some kind of a organization. They don't have to do anything about the 501c3, et cetera. The foundation covers all that. But then they could go ahead and try to work on something with the department to see if there's any way that we could come up with something for ice skating. And so, we didn't do the survey because of the reasons you suggested, but I'm just wondering if there's anything else that we could do as an outreach, maybe a story again or something to say, folks, there's going to be no ice skating this winter, just to let you know.
I think that's kind of a hard thing to respond to, but we've had it out in the public a lot, and we haven't gotten virtually no response.
I didn't get one single email, pro or con, I'm going to say either direction, and usually I do. That's a good way to say it. So I was actually surprised that I didn't get, but it just didn't rise. I don't know why. And it may be that it really will once it's gone. And I'm gonna bet that's when we get a couple of emails like, what happened to the annual ice rink? That's when we're gonna get it.
And for me, we have such significant safety issues, ADA issues, infrastructure issues that we've all discussed here at the commission. If I'm going to fundraise, if I'm going to write grants, I think those are the priorities. It's not that this isn't important and isn't a wonderful part of the community, but we're going to be closing playgrounds. It's dire. Our infrastructure needs are great. We are just like streets. We have things that are old and outdated and falling apart. And if we don't really come up with a plan and dive into that, we're going to be closing a lot more than just the ice rink. And I didn't get into parks to close anything. So I don't want to do that on my watch, and I don't think you guys want to see that happen. So it's not that this isn't important. So if there's a third party or private groups that want to lead that effort, I would appreciate it. I would encourage it. I just don't want, $500 to be raised and then that's going to sit in a bank account forever when you need, a couple $100,000. So it just needs to be thoughtful and needs to be respectful of those people that are sinking their money into it.
Yeah, so I had mentioned before, I wasn't able to make it to the meeting in April, but I've been an advocate for it, but I kind of think people have spoken in a sense, the fact that they haven't. So I think it's just time to move on, and we'll revisit it when maybe we hear from everybody at Christmastime when they don't have a skating rink, and then we can revisit it then. So the next question is, what are you going to do with the equipment? Because I think it'd be worthwhile to look at just selling it for what it's worth and be done with it.
I don't know what is salvageable, or to say, the dasher boards need to be junked. I mean, they need to literally be thrown away. We might be able to have, some scrap metal or something that we could.
Yeah, to get it done.
We could do that, but beyond that, I wouldn't be comfortable really doing that. I think there's probably a liability and a safety risk. We already purchased most of it used anyway. I mean, we really
Right.
use it beyond its useful
so,
life.
So just, yeah, are we going to recycle it then, just so it doesn't?
Yeah, whatever we can recycle,
Doesn't
of course,
sit.
we would do that. And then, we'll keep the skates, all those things that we could possibly reuse again, of course, we wouldn't get rid of that. But the dasher boards and the larger equipment is just, it's got to go. And we'll probably have some costs associated with disposing some of it. I mean, you have the glycol tubes, we have some hazardous waste with supporting that, so there's some costs.
Can we eBay the skates to offset those costs?
We
I'm just
might,
thinking,
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it'd be worthwhile, like, if we're making the decision that it's over, just to get rid of all of it.
Everything?
Yeah, because I can just imagine 5 years from now, it's sitting in somebody else's job to have to get rid of it.
Well,
So
maybe I can cut a deal with South Lake Tahoe,
yeah.
because they have an active ice rink.
Sure.
I don't know what their needs are, so.
Yeah, I just like the
We'll
idea
look into that.
of if the decision's, I think, been made, that it's just, let's, be done with it and have it be a clean departure, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cassiopo?
I would just kind of add to your concerns about the, getting rid of old equipment and trying to sell it. In the school district, we had to get rid of all the old portables. And we had done an extensive amount of research on what to do with these things. And we really found that there was such a liability in selling this that we didn't want the liability. And the cost to just demo these things was a lot, to where we wound up getting rid of a couple that could be reused, and they went to like ranches and things like that for things, but it was very carefully scripted in what it could be used for and where it could go.
Right.
And it was hard just to get our money back out of these things. So we are gonna probably incur some costs. So to Brett's, idea about the skates or whatever, yeah, if we're done, we're done. Maybe we can offset some of that, because there will be some hazardous disposal costs. So.
Any other, Commissioner Lehman?
So I would concur, if we're done, we should try to cut our losses, but at least my suggestion would be, these things have already been sitting in storage for 6-7 months. The stuff that's got to be junk, like the dasher boards, let's try to get rid of them, but things like skates, tents, why don't we at least wait and see what the community response is? Yeah, when the ice rink doesn't show up in December, who knows what's going to happen then? Maybe someone does jump out, because it hasn't hit yet where it hasn't been available. So we should at least wait till that happens before we get rid of the stuff that is usable.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions? Commissioner Curtis?
Yeah, kind of related, because we're talking about, the budget, and let me know if I'm offline here. But, so we had drafted a letter to the Board of Supervisors, as I recall. You did, right? And the chair did. And so I'm just wondering, I didn't get a chance to see the letter, but I'm wondering if there was any reaction from the board, from anything that we said in the letter regarding the budget. Obviously, you supported, things that,
Well, I just want to say, again, we were successful in getting the budget approved, and the only thing from Jennifer's submittal that we rejected was the ice rink, and that really did not impact the budget, because it really is a kind of a wash, because you took both the revenue and the expense out. So we let her keep the dollars from the change of the deputy position. We didn't redirect that as savings and put it somewhere else. We left it in the parks budget. So I thought we were as successful as Yeah, I was really pleased that I could, I don't want to say fight for us, because that's not a good word, but be a great advocate for the parks, and so I think.
We did get everything we requested.
Yeah, so
I mean,
I'm happy.
budgets are not my favorite thing. I'm not a numbers girl, but it was a really good, positive process, and the board was supportive. Everything we requested from our CIP, from everything, was approved. So they've really noticed our needs, and they approved everything. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, obviously, this fiscal year, because we have to get all that done. So it's a good problem to have. But they were really supportive. I did send you all an email after the budget was approved, and it had a bulleted list of what was approved in that budget. So if there's more information on the budget that you would like, let me know. I'm happy to provide that to you.
Any more questions? All right, any public comment on this? CK.
CK Bailey for the record. And by the way, I greatly apologize. You're a king. You're a giant. So I mean, you send a great shadow over everything here. You're both very, very tall. Okay. I suppose the Zamboni can't be used at Bailey's to remove sediment and weed life, aquatic things like that, huh?
I'm working with FEMA on addressing that issue.
You answered the question of why I came here today. Thank you very much. Kind of a sidebar on that, since you were talking budget, it's now in the books that that you have a partner, you have an equal. Is that a done deal? In other words, you're the chief, you're the superintendent of Parks and Recreation. Is that correct?
No, I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. We have a Parks Superintendent and a Recreation Superintendent.
Okay, and that is the second tier.
And there's copies of the organizational chart on that table for you.
Fantastic,
so
I'll do that.
You're welcome to that one.
And there are names in those slots, or those people have not been?
Just titles right now, but I can get you one with names.
Oh, okay, so those individuals have been chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Perfect. See, you show up here, it's just voila.
Your guy's right there.
I thought I felt something on the back of my neck. Thank you very much.
Let's move on to agenda item 4C, Director's Report on non-substantive updates regarding the department's recruitment for vacant positions, the AmeriCorps recruitment, Schultz Ranch Landscape Maintenance District, federal funding and projects at risk, 2017 flood damage, park planning, and Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. This will be quick. I know there's a lot listed there, but I was trying to catch everything in case you had questions. So we did talk about the Deputy Director position and the reorganization and all of that. So we did recruit and fill the Park Operations Superintendent. So that's David Navarro. He's in the back there. And I just wanted to congratulate Dave. Dave's been with the department for over 10 years. He's been the Park Operations Manager. Prior to that, he was our sports field coordinator. He's the heart and soul of our department and really handles a lot and makes a lot of things, that are challenging, makes it work. So happy to, provide that opportunity for him. And I know he's up to the challenge and helping us kind of make that strategic plan happen. So we are recruiting for Dave's old position, the Park Operations Manager right now. That closes tomorrow. We had a 3-week recruitment for that, and we'll be looking to fill that pretty quickly because of anything that Park Operations Manager is like the heart and soul of everything that we do, and we don't want that vacant for too long. That really handles all of our logistics in the park side of things. Let's see. So some of you received an email. Our department business manager has taken a position at the state of Nevada. So I'm going to be requesting approval on Wednesday to fill that position from the Internal Finance Committee and hopefully get that advertised very soon and do recruitment for that. So that was Daria Worth, her position. So that one is currently vacant. Then on to our AmeriCorps, which is really exciting. We've kind of brushed on this subject over the last sort of 6 or 8 months, and it's really happening. We do have an agreement with the Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation. They received a federal grant to provide the match and the support for our contribution. So the city is contributing $22,500 for 3 full-time staff for 1 year. They're fully benefited through the federal government. They have health benefits. It's really an amazing program, the AmeriCorps Vista program. We'll be receiving 3 AmeriCorps Vista volunteers. Our first one arrives Monday. We're expecting them in a couple months, so they were a little earlier than we planned, so we're scrambling a bit to make sure they have workstations and all the support that they need to do their job. But we'll have 3 AmeriCorps Vistas. One will be an outreach and education coordinator, one will be PR and marketing, and one will be a volunteer coordinator. So we have the outreach and education is the one that will be starting on Monday, and we have the PR and marketing person selected. We're still trying to fill the volunteer coordinator position. So they will be housed out of Building 7 over at the corporate yard. They will have a workspace. We're going to make sure they have computers and all the support that they need. 2 of them, the outreach and education and volunteer coordinator, will report to our park ranger, John Costello, and the PR marketing coordinator will report to Dan Earp, our recreation superintendent, because he's sort of taken the lead on a lot of our marketing efforts so far. Any questions on vacant positions or recruitment? Anything along those lines? Okay, then I'll move on. We'll move on to the flood update. So we've been working with the Department of Emergency Management and FEMA, doing our flood site inspections. There's a lot of paperwork and processes that go with this. You can't just go out and start fixing things. So we have to kind of play the federal game and make sure we have all of our ducks in a row. We've gone through all of our FEMA inspections, which is great, so we can start moving forward. We did do all of the ball field improvements at the beginning of the season, made all that happen so we didn't displace any, the thousands of users, that have spring and summer ball. So those are done. The upcoming projects that will be happening are Riverview Park, interior trail system. Riverview Park will probably be done in phases. The river is just now receding, so we can't even get to, if you had a dinghy, maybe you could take a boat out and figure out some of the damage, but it's, we still haven't even discovered all the damage that's probably done there. So that is a high priority. Long Ranch Park, removing and replacing those damaged paved trails, and we had a little footbridge out there. That'll be this fall. Also Moffett Open Space, from Lapeer to Hell's Bells. That is, we already have plans, engineering designs, everything's ready to go. That probably should go out to bid pretty soon to get a contractor for that. And then hopefully there's 3 playgrounds that were impacted that need new FIBAR material, new weed fabric, and we can get those out this fall as well. There probably will be others, but those are the highest priorities right now and getting those replaced. We have 18 months from last May to complete these projects. So the clock is ticking, but we also have this process with FEMA that we have to go along with before we can move forward. So I know the public's really itching at getting things done, but we have to make sure we do it in a thoughtful, correct way. Otherwise, we might not get reimbursed, and we don't want to take that risk because that's a big financial risk for the city. Any questions on flood?
So yeah, obviously people see the parks in their neighborhood the most, and yeah, I'm no stranger to that. So up in Long Ranch, trails washed out. That was in January, and when you say this fall, are we talking September, October, November, or is there some kind of?
It should go out to bid fairly soon, but because there's asphalt involved, we need to get that done before temperatures start to turn. So it would be before October, I would anticipate, because that's really when the temperatures start to turn, and you don't want that asphalt to not cure properly.
Oh, then there's some other just like minor things like sandbags are still laid out there. I guess those would be picked up at
Long
that
Ranch,
point.
yeah.
And
We
elsewhere,
would make sure
yeah.
that whole site is cleaned up at the same time.
All right, thanks.
I have a question about kind of the Long Ranch area. I go and run there a fair amount, and it's still all just cordoned off. And I don't understand what the safety, I'm guessing it's for safety, for public safety, but how is that really any different than any other trail where there's typical just conditions that can be normal trail, I guess, normal hazards, that you would be consistent with any other trail, where that we could just use them as is?
The areas at Long Ranch that should still be blocked off are pretty significant damage. The whole paved trail system basically incised. And, I mean, you couldn't even walk across a lot of it. There's some little access points that are probably not too bad, but it leads to even worse conditions. So we did sign those and close those off. We tried to open everything we possibly could. So if there's other areas that you think we might need to look at that could potentially be open that maybe doesn't lead to something else not significant, I mean, our maintenance staff would be happy to look at that with you.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah,
we're
I mean,
completely open to it. I mean, we close so many things, there might be something we forgot to reopen, so.
I haven't actually walked past them to see, but just from looking in, it's like, I could run up there. That'd be, just let
When you
people go
might-
in there and just put up a
You might
sign.
go up like 100 feet and then
Yeah.
there's sinkholes. We have a lot of issues. One I didn't mention is on the Mexican dam. So then the Mexican Dam Company, which, you know, the city is a shareholder in, we're working with them to get the sinkholes and the other significant issues around that. That should be done in the matter of the next couple of months as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
One,
Commissioner?
one last question. We're talking about, I mean, would an outside contractor be doing these repairs, or will our own staff be doing these repairs?
We've done a lot of work already in-house, like all of the work at Fuji Park. I didn't even, you know, bring all that we've done up in-house with existing equipment, existing staff, to not hire a third-party contractor. But everything else that's left to remaining to be done, those projects will be bid by Public Works, and then Parks will manage those construction projects. So it will be licensed contractors in most cases doing the work, you know, with bonding, insurance, you know, all of that that goes with it. So we have to bid it in a manner that is acceptable to FEMA. So, which is great. I mean, it is provide jobs and, you know, creates a lot of work. So there's the positive side of it. And then I did want to let you know that the Schultz Ranch Landscape Maintenance District, we did issue that assessment. So that started this year, this fiscal year. So that went out for July 1. So it's $211 approximately. That's not the exact amount. I can't remember what the change is. That will be assessed in the first phase only right now. I did want to let you know you have a park planning update. I asked Vern to kind of give an update, just a one-pager for you so you know where certain projects are at in the status report. But the Schultz Ranch Park, we're at 60% design, working with, you know, their design consultants, and they intend to start construction this year. So we will have a new park, you know, for residents, you know, next year. And so the landscape maintenance district is set to increase every year to adjust for accommodating that maintenance. So the first phase we already implemented, and we're actually subcontracting that out because we just don't have the manpower to take care of it. So we have Lawn Pro was the successful bidder, and they're taking care of that first phase of landscape maintenance improvements, and it's basically just right-of-way landscaping as you enter the subdivision.
A couple of questions. First of all, $211 a year, is that what the
Yes.
assessment is? Okay.
Per property owner.
Okay.
In the first year only, that will increase.
Right,
And then
right.
as we get parks on the ground, it will
Right.
jump up.
Okay. And then I think in the past, when there's been a big park like that, like Menken's or something, it's come back to the commission to look at? Are we going to be seeing it before it's
Well, the
completely done?
Schultz Ranch Park, that conceptual design already came to this board quite a while ago, before I was even employed here. So
Okay.
that conceptual design and amenities and all of that has already been decided before I even got here. So right now, we're just in the mechanics of the physical design, and they'll start construction here. So you guys already approved the conceptual park plan.
Okay,
for Schultz
I
Ranch.
just, I'm sorry if I don't recall, can't remember all the things that were in it. Or was it that detailed in terms of?
It's a pretty basic park. It has basketball courts, it has a covered picnic area, it has a walking path that goes around. There's a couple different parks. One of them will be constructed next year. The other one, I'm not sure what their time frame is for that. Obviously, parks help them sell homes. They're selling homes really fast right now. I mean, the market's just hot, so they want to see that park go in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second thing, and there's been some correspondence between myself and Vern concerning the dog park.
No, that's for Lampa that you were
Oh,
asking
I'm sorry.
questions about.
You're
So
right,
right now,
you're
we're
right.
talking about Schultz Ranch.
Okay. All
But we
right.
can talk about Lampa too, if you'd like.
Well, is it on this list here, or, no, we're not doing anything with, oh, yeah, Lampa.
Well, I put
Yeah.
the park planning update, so anything on Vern's report,
Okay.
which that's in
Yeah,
there.
okay, I do have a question then. As I recall, it seemed to me that it was a 10-acre park, and then they added a dog park. And I just want to make sure that it's still that way. The idea is that there's going to be a park somewhere, and then I thought in a different location there was going to be a dog park.
So Vern Cron went back and he reviewed the minutes. He also reviewed that board meeting, the commission meeting, to make sure he was really clear on that. And there is a 10-acre park in there, but there was discussion of the need for a dog park. That wasn't talked about in detail, whether that's separate or the location or the size. So we'll work with the developer to make sure that happens, but that park design, you're gonna have to approve the conceptual park design. So that would be the appropriate time to really delve into the details of that. They haven't tried to pull a permit, they're really not there yet. I mean, I know the development community, it's, everything's, why the iron is hot, but I'm not sure exactly what that time frame will be realistically. So that conceptual design, though, will come back to this commission for approval, and they're well aware of that.
Yeah, because the first park or something, if I remember, is until what, at least 750 homes? And
Yeah.
they pulled 259 and then maybe, so they're not there yet.
Yeah.
But we will get to see that one.
But there is two parks. There's, one on the west side, one on the east side. There's a 3-acre park. There's a 10-acre park. Yeah. Yeah. And that one will be, not a landscape maintenance district. That's sort of in our back pocket as a last resort. It will be 100% funded homeowners association for maintenance. So moving forward, that's going to be our department's policy on how we proceed with new developments. So we're not incurring additional costs and maintenance needs, on the backs of other taxpayers.
Jennifer, quick observation. We went out and toured the homes at the Schultz Ranch maybe about a month ago. And playing stupid, I asked the realtor, are there any HOO fees, any maintenance fees, anything like that? No, once you pay for your house, you're done. All you're going to pay for is taxes. Maybe, well, it is, but I said, that's it, just property taxes? Yes, just property taxes.
It's definitely not a tax. An assessment fee is completely different. Yeah.
Giving misinformation to
Sure.
potential home buyers.
I'd be happy to follow up with the developer and let them know what your experience was and see what we could do to remedy that. I can tell you that all of the recorded documents related to that, and there are a lot of them, as Iris and I have spent a lot of time going through them, they are in your homeowner's packet. So when you purchase that piece of property, you have full disclosures of that. Whether people go through that and read it, I've bought in homes, I don't read any of that stuff. It's just like reading Greek. But, so, I mean, obviously.
I could sell you.
Yeah, but we did also notice before we implemented the assessment, we sent out a courtesy notice to all of those homeowners in that first phase, making it very clear when it started, what the fee was, and then it will increase over time. So we were pretty upfront. We have.
Nobody can
And I
come back
haven't
and say
had
they were
any
surprised.
questions or complaints.
Okay.
The assessor's office has had a couple weird, people just confused about how it works and what that means kind of questions. So we did provide Patty, our front office person, I gave her some talking points. So if people do call, she can be able to answer some basic questions and try to help educate people on the facts.
Excellent, thank you.
And then also in your packet is the one with the red and the yellow highlights. So this is actually a copy of some talking points we provided for the mayor. He's going to be meeting with Senator Heller and to discuss federal funding issues and concerns and things that are on basically the federal chopping block and how it impacts parks here in town. There are a couple things in here I noted too about how it would potentially impact the fire department that we thought was important. So I let the chief, fire chief know that we included that in the talking points. But you'll see Roscoe Park in there. There's a lot of current projects at risk and obviously future projects at risk. The federal budget hasn't been approved. They start in October. There's still some time, and there's a lot of, legwork going on to prepare that federal budget. I don't know where that's going to land, but we wanted to provide, the mayor, good, accurate information on what we're hearing from our federal partners, from BLM, from the National Park Service that administer a lot of these programs, how it might affect us here locally in Carson City. So we did provide that information. Obviously, all of this stuff is still up in the air. None of this might be cut. All of it might be cut. It might be some, might be, I don't know what combination, but I just wanted to let you know sort of what is potentially out there and what we've provided. So we were told for Rathsgold that the land and water, that we received, the land and water, we were selected for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. We also received the Community Development Block grant for that. And then we were told that, the disc golf course just didn't quite, we were like 1 point below or something of getting funding. And then they told us that neither one of them's going to get funded. And then we got a call back and said, oh, by the way, you are going to get funded. And I got a call from Catherine Cortez Masto's office 2 weeks ago saying, yes, congratulations, you are going to get funding for the disc golf project and the playground project, but I still don't have anything in writing. So when we get an agreement and when we get it in writing, I will let you all know, and we can celebrate together. But so the latest version we're getting is that we are getting those projects funded, but I'll wait till we get a written agreement. But is there any questions on that document?
Anybody have any questions or concerns? All right.
I have concerns about the paths.
Yeah. I mean, I encourage you to reach out to, our senators and our congressmen and, share your concern for these. And this, you have some facts here locally about what could potentially impact Carson City residents. These are, tremendous funding sources. Typically, Land and Water Conservation Fund in particular is very bipartisan and usually stands the test of time. It's been implemented since the 70s. And, I hope it will continue. But
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the report and the information. Are there any public comments on this? CK, come on down, honey.
You're too kind, CK Bailey, once again for the record. I'm putting in my 2 cents because I know that that Clear Creek breached a minimum of 3 times, probably more. There may be again. That Bailey's was closed for about, 2, 3, 4 months after January 1st due to flooding and dangerous conditions related to at Fuji Park. I'm sticking in my 2 cents because Bailey's has a very important place in my heart, and that I have actually done some volunteer work and will continue to be your volunteer and advocate for Bailey's Pond and for this town and for the fishermen who feel that this place is a slice of heaven. I just wanted to stick in my 2 cents that hopefully that there's some FEMA funding coming down the road to be able to de-sediment some of the places that have filled the pond somewhat, and some of the, let's see, what it was also was going on, some of the vegetation, some of the soil that has moved, and let's see, we have fixed the fence, so that's been pretty good. So there's been some improvements made after the flooding, but there's still a concern about some areas of the pond that do need to be sedimented. I don't know if that's a real word or not, but some sediment has to be removed. Thank you so much. Any questions? Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will let you know that, so we have one representative on behalf of the city that's doing a lot of the negotiating with FEMA and a lot of the work, and that's Rob Fellows. I have met with him. We are working through our list. We do have David Navarro. A lot of our staff are working also with FEMA on a lot of these projects. One of the requests I did make is that the pond needed to be dredged, and we need to work on that. There's a lot of long-term mitigation other than the pond that we need to address to talk about the breaching of Clear Creek. We have to be really careful. That's a water of the U.S., requires an Army Corps permit. There's certain things that we want to try to fix first without having to trigger some of those other things. They are well aware of that, and that has been part of our request. So that's sort of one thing that's still hanging out there, but we're aware of it, is, the sediment in the pond.
Thank you very much for that, Jennifer. CK, once again. There's also the weed life that has accumulated due to the rush of water that has just kind of taken, and that there haven't been enough fishermen basically dredging hooks through it to remove the weed life, which is choking certain areas of the pond. Just wanted to throw that in for the record as well. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for your help on that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, CK. Appreciate your comments.
I appreciate you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and all you commissioners very, very much. Thank you.
Let's move on to item number 5, members' announcements and requests for information. Let's hear from Commissioner Cassiopo.
Got one down there, too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sean?
Oh, who's going first? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I've got one of each, an announcement and a request for information. So last time we met as a combined group with Open Space, my boy came here and talked about his eco project, so I was going to give you an update on that. That did happen in June. It was great weather. The high was in the 60s, which was perfect. We had about 20 kids and adults total, and what I wanted to bring up is that Open Space helped us out significantly. They brought the community cleanup trailer and a truck and a Ranger. Me and the Ranger lugged the 5-gallon paint buckets across the whole hill, so we weren't really happy about that. But it was heavy stuff. Put it in a wheelbarrow. Anyway, we figured we got about 130 man-hours into that. We moved all the rocks, took out a bunch of weeds, and came back that evening and sprayed out 30 gallons of paint onto it. So Carson now wrote a little article on that, and it was kind of cool that there's like 900 likes. There was another community event right by it that got like 4 likes. So it was highly visible and highly appreciated. But in that article from Carson Now, they neglected to mention that Open Space had helped with that. So I wanted to make sure that that was put out there, that Open Space did contribute a Ranger, a truck, and the community cleanup trailer, and they helped out significantly with that, and it turned out good. So we're hoping that since next year's a 1-8, 8's going to be too tough to screw around with. And once I get to the 2s, it'll be way too tough. So hopefully that'll last for a while. So that turned out well, and I do appreciate all the help from Open Space that we got for that. So another thing I was going to bring up, which would be a request for information, is 2 Saturdays ago was the open house on the new freeway, and I don't know if anybody was there, but I was, and some people said hundreds of people are there, some people said thousands of people were there, and it could have been in the thousands. There were lots and lots and lots of people there, and I've been to all 4 of these for all 4 segments, and they're always very, very, very popular. So just an idea I had in my mind, something that we could think about is there's something called Ciclovia that started in Bogota. I've been to Bogota, and they started this in the 70s. They shut down their main street, and everyone shows up and bikes and rides, and it's a big community event. It's every Sunday morning from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Well, now most cities in Latin America are doing this now, and now it's happening in a lot of American cities. And with the freeway going through, and with us having a brand new downtown with new pavement, and with such a smash-up success with these freeway open houses, I'm wondering if this is something Carson City could do, where we knock off downtown Sunday mornings, and it's open for bike riders, rollerbladers, ice skaters. It's open for anybody to come down, and it's quite the community event, and you meet your community members out there. It's been so popular, these freeway open houses, and with the brand new downtown and now the traffic going around downtown, maybe we could talk to Muscle Powered Public Works, even have a future agenda item about doing something like that, because it could be quite popular, especially with the burgeoning cycling community here in Carson City. So that's my request for information.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I was going to go Commissioner Cassiopoulos.
Oh, okay, I'll be quick. I don't really have much to report. I've been on vacation and just got back. Unless you want to hear about that, it was really fun. And it was only 73 degrees.
Oh, wow.
But, no, the schools are in the same boat where, as far as open space goes, we've had some flood damage, things like that. Not just our buildings, but our fields and whatnot. So there's a lot of plans to get things done. Some have been fixed already, some are going to be fixed, but, lots of projects, limited funds, and we're just hitting it a piece at a time. But, school's in good shape for, as probably you're seeing, school's getting ready to start, so the schools are in good shape, ready for the kids to come back and the programs that haven't already started to begin. So that's my report.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I was just wondering, looking at the minutes and stuff, there was the state Parks and Recreation event in Reno, and I think, did you go?
The conference?
Yeah, the conference.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if there was anything of significance anybody heard or saw or whatever. Sometimes, particularly if there was something significant, somebody would report back, but I didn't know if anything, really gelled you or.
I think for me, the biggest impression that I got from the conference was the effort from the aquatics community throughout the state. And they had a whole separate track for aquatics, which isn't traditional at the Nevada Recreation and Park Society conference. And Mike Freeman, one of our recreation managers, was a huge part of that. He's on the state aquatics committee, and they had a whole separate track. They had separate certifications. He taught the certified pool and spa operator course as part of that track. It was really well attended, and it was impressive. I mean, something that probably could happen at a national level. So I can see that group really, is making things happen in the state, and it's something that we're part of, and we should be proud of that. So I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from the conference.
Focus did seem to be on aquatics. And the irony is I sat in on one on safety from this gentleman from Texas, and he went into all the requirements to have a safe event. And then that Saturday I read where, unfortunately, at this big event where he had planned and he was touting there had been a fatality. I just felt so bad for him because he'd been doing this event. It's some sort of Ironman competition. And somebody unfortunately perished during the swimming portion. And that was not his focus on safety. It was more out on the roads. He was sure somebody was going to get hit riding a bike or something, and he was telling us how to be safe. And I just felt bad for the poor man. Did you have something for the foundation?
Yes, I do, and I'll be as fast as I can. Okay, so we, at the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Foundation, had a very successful awards ceremony on July 12th at Fuji Park. This was for the Volunteer of the Year and the Year's Organization of the Year, et cetera. And that went really well and was pretty well attended, and everybody seemed to be very happy to do that. And then we had an open house at the Wingamia House, and there was some beautiful artwork in there. I just want to compliment David Johnson on the foundation because he brought in some beautiful, beautiful pieces of Indian art and masks and other kinds of things, and they were just really lovely to look at. And he may do it again sometime, but it was really great. Then we also had an event on July 2nd, and one of the things that we're doing there is we're kind of featuring some of these groups that we're supporting, and that was a disc golf. We had disc golf demonstration there, and that, as I understand it, went really well. We have one coming up August 27th, the last Sunday in August, and we haven't put a theme to that one yet, but I guess you'll probably read about it, in the paper or Carson Now, because we generally try to get something out about that. I just wanted to announce that I'm putting together a community meeting about dog parks. We used to have a group called Parks for Paws, and the idea is to see if there's interest in people in the community reviving that. There is some money left over from the fundraising that group did, and so the question is, how do we want to allocate that money? And so there may be interest. I'm going to try to advertise it as best I can. It's September 14th, and it's going to be in the Bonanza Room here in the Community Center, starting at 6 o'clock. So hopefully, if you're interested, get a hold of somebody in the Parks Department, I guess, and let them know if you have any questions or want to know more about it. And I'll also be attending the Cassie event, Bark Wine and Dine, which is something that actually Parks for Paws started. And hopefully I'll be able to make some announcements there and get some signups, et cetera. And then, let's see, I think that's pretty much, we may try to then, when we have our open house in September 24th, at the W House, I call it the W House, something to do with dogs, just to kind of see if, we can get that going. That's it.
Anybody? Items. First off, I went to the Carson Fair last week. It was a job well done. Lindsay Chichester, her staff, and all the volunteers are to be commended. Thought it was fabulous, had a good time. The best part was watching the 4-H kids with their livestock. They're so proud of them. They can tell you anything about their animal. I got told birthdays, names, everything. It was very good. So job well done to Lindsay and her group. Then also, as stated previously, I went to the open house that the Public Works had. And the gentleman from the wastewater treatment facility has offered to give the Parks and Rec Commission a VIP tour of the facility anytime we'd like it. We just need to let him know when and where, so something to mull for the future, if you guys would like to go, not go. And then Jennifer, Sunday, I was in Smith's, and there was some 4 or 5 young people and their parents very upset because they couldn't use the outdoor pool on Sunday. Was it closed?
We've had a couple closures of the outdoor pool due to the smoke. So we've only closed it when it's been in the unhealthy range based on the recommendation of the health department. It's very consistent with other outdoor pools in the region. City of Reno, Sparks, Washoe County have all done that, but the only time we have closed that is because of that. We do have some limited hours based on our budget, so, we're not always open when everybody wants.
They kind of felt it was maybe just staff didn't want to open it. I don't think it was fully communicated to them why it was being closed.
My understanding, we've had 2, maybe 3-day closures because of unhealthy range in the smoke. But other than that, we're doing our standard hours. We haven't had, we have had some mechanical issues with the heater and the showers and some other kind of things that have happened, and but we've never been closed because of any other mechanical issues.
That. All right, anybody else have any requests for information? Sean?
So one last time, since you brought up the Carson City Fair, I think that exists a lot for livestock, because the Nevada State Fair doesn't have livestock. So the question is, and maybe this could be something we discuss since they use our facilities. I'm thinking in my mind, I know they're 2 completely separate groups, but wouldn't we be better served combining the 2 and making it one big Nevada State Fair rather than having 2? And is that something we could discuss?
So the Nevada State Fair is operated by Nevada State Fair LLC, which is a private group. They are considered nonprofit according to the Secretary of State's website. They do have their event at Mills Park. They have told us they have no interest to bring in that wildlife or livestock component because of the time of year that they have it. It doesn't really work for the fair. The Carson City Fair is under the umbrella of the cooperative extension at the university, and then they have a lot of other partners. So they had tractor pools, and they had a lot of components to the event. RSVP was a partner. It is more of your traditional state fair with all of those components, although they called it the Carson City Fair to try not to have any confusion. So I think they've tried to have conversations about combining them. I don't know how well that has gone. But all the components that they had at the state fair, they actually had at the city fair, if that makes sense. So we had the carnival component, all of the things other than the reenactment, I think was the only thing that was missing, the rendezvous.
Actually, they seem to have more components of a traditional fair than the state fair.
Correct.
If I may, I used to serve on a committee when we had the fair starting at Fuji Park, and then it was discovered that there was an individual that owns the title State Fair. So we could not call it State Fair. But I worked as a volunteer at the information booth when people first came into the park 2 years in a row for many hours, and people at Fuji loved it. I was at Mills Park, not so much.
Yeah.
So I consider them two different events. It's too bad that we can't get the title State Fair since we are the state capital. But that's just the way it is. It's a legal thing, and it's kind of not a good thing. But, I think the preference in terms of if you're thinking of State Fair, don't forget the exhibits, tasting jam and all that good kind of stuff. I mean, it's a whole different atmosphere than what's at Mills Park.
Right, that livestock and that agricultural component is really part of that traditional fair. We will have staff going to the debrief of the Carson City Fair. I can definitely ask that if there's any desire, to see if they could join efforts. But
I was in some of those original meetings, and right, it's a legal issue, and even the legislature had to tweak something. Everything I've heard is the Carson City Fair is more the traditional fair, but the Nevada State Fair is more just kind of a knockoff carnival of sorts. So it's just too bad that the people that do the Nevada State Fair couldn't see the value of the traditional fair and somehow.
I believe the Department of Agriculture is trying to remedy that situation. I don't know what the details of that are, but I think from the state level, they are trying to work on that. So if I find anything else out, though, I'd be happy to update you.
Okay, let's move on to future agenda items. Future agenda items. We have our list, Sean?
My only question is the tour next month. Are we doing that?
I think that's up for discussion.
How does everybody feel about a tour next month? Fine? Everybody up for it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm pulling up the calendar to see here.
If staff's up to it.
If staff's up to it, yes.
Talking September 5th.
Yes, Jennifer. when
So
would
if
it be?
we did our traditional meeting date of the month, that would be September 5th.
Yes.
Yep.
Sure.
Does Labor Day pose any issues for
No.
vacations or anything for all of you? So if you want to do that, we'll arrange transportation and a tour. If there's specific sites that you want us to visit, let me know either now or send me an email, and we'll try to craft the tour around that. I would like to show you some of the flood impacted areas I think would be beneficial and what challenges we had. Also, maybe see the future site of the Schultz Ranch Park location, so you can familiarize yourself with that and what phase 1 improvements of that landscape maintenance district. Thought that might be beneficial, but anything else, or if you don't like that idea, I'm open to whatever direction you want.
Okay, great. All right. Any public comment? Oh, what?
Hey,
I have some
sorry.
more
What?
future agenda items. Sorry. Okay, just a note that in February, we normally elect the chair, and we didn't review the bylaws this year. Maybe we need to take a look. I don't know if we need to do it every year, but might as well put them before us to see if anybody has any issues. I'd like to have an item, I don't know if there's something in here, maybe with fees and charges policy, et cetera, in terms of reserving parks, reserving, the grounds, how that works, and whether or not, the policy that's in place is the best idea or not. I've run into some problems trying to reserve something. So I would like to see us discuss that either as part of the fee schedule thing or separately, however you want to do it.
I think either in December or February, that would probably be appropriate, because how we currently operate will be impacted to any changes in the fee schedule. And so We do have a lot of issues with our reservation process. It's very cumbersome. It's not very user-friendly from the staff side or the public side, and we recognize that. A lot of the issues we have, though, are our fee structure. So some of those things may be remedied through the fee policy and getting a new structure. So I would say either at that meeting or maybe shortly thereafter, if that's acceptable to you guys.
So I just had a question, maybe, I don't know if it's worth putting on, but we were talking about Schultz. It made me wonder what's going on with Vintage. Is there anything on there? I don't even know if, is it going? I don't know. But is there anything from a parks perspective that we want to review, or ultimately they're going to bring us a proposal, right?
Well, the development plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors and through the Planning Commission. We did have parks and trail components as part of that plan. It would have, an east-west trail connectivity through there. I think we got everything, that we heard from you guys that we wanted. I don't know that they've even closed escrow on the property, so I'm not exactly sure what the status is of that development moving forward. I had heard they were gonna break ground next year. I mean, there's a lot of rumors around, but I'm not sure. I could try to get an update from community development and maybe get you maybe a written update on where that project is, but it might be still some speculation at this point.
Okay.
But it was approved at the board level.
Okay.
And then they'll have to come back to us with that design, that conceptual design, once they get to that point. But I don't
I just
really
want to make sure
see-
they're going to indeed come back to us.
Yeah.
Because I know we had good conversations about it, but when we left then, and really the question was, what are they going to do with it?
Right, and the park components were in the first phase. So, should it move forward, we would,
Okay.
be actively involved
Sounds
when
good.
that gets going.
Anything else? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll move.
All right, second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, we are adjourned.
Right.